I'm Johnny Millennium, and this is Victor Lucas, and this is FilmFury. And today we're reviewing A Ghost Story. And we got to thank our friends at the VFS School of Film. So this movie stars Rooney Mara, Casey Affleck, and it's directed by David Lowery. And he did Pete's Dragon, and you said you enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, he did the Pete's Dragon remake last year. I reviewed that, and I actually kind of dug that movie. It was soppy and you know, kind of kiddie, of course, but it was very arty. And I think that you can kind of say that about A Ghost Story as well. It's a very arty movie.
It's a very artsy movie. What did you think of this movie?
It was really tough going at the beginning. You and I were bored out of our goddamn minds when this thing started.
Very slow start.
We watched Rooney Mara actually eat a whole pie after she's sort of dealing with the death of Casey Affleck, who actually is, you know, this is in the trailer, he's a ghost under a sheet, which is so on the nose and
so
ludicrous.
Stereotypical and like Casper the Friendly Ghost material here.
It's so silly and so off-putting when you're watching a guy in a sheet watch somebody eat a pie for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, and she did. She sits down at one point next to the counters and eats a pie for 10 minutes, and we're like, okay, what's gonna happen now? And she just keeps eating the pie. And just as soon as you think she's done, she keeps eating the pie.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is like borderline insanity. I can't believe they just set up the camera so many times and just did this.
Yeah, they set up the camera so often, and right away you are kind of let in. They have this trope of, it's kind of like you're watching this through an Instagram filter right from the very beginning.
4x3, you know?
I think it was a square camera. It could be 4x3, but it looked just like a box.
It did, really,
Right, and so that was kind of an interesting choice. I thought for sure we were going to have the pan out or the pull out
at one point.
Yeah, to make it a full widescreen film. But no, you're watching this whole thing like you're watching it on your phone, which is kind of crazy, but very intimate. And I think that was what the concept was here. We actually get a ghost's story. We follow the whole progression of Casey Affleck dying, and the way they handled the death is it was off camera and it was kind of muted.
Very small, very muted for sure.
And then we just follow this ghost for years.
And that's the whole thing. I don't know if that's a spoiler or what, but I was sitting there and we were bored in the whole beginning, and I was like, I hate this movie. I don't like this movie. I'm like, it's artsy. They're just holding shots for so long. And I'm like, man, we could make this in our basement. It was like a bore story at that point. But we hit a point in the story where it opens up, and this is something crazy. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah.
I was emotional watching this movie. Yeah. I actually had tears in my eyes, and I feel so embarrassed to admit that.
Why?
But no, because the movie moved me so much, and I went in and I was like going, oh, this is just an artsy movie.
Well,
I don't think
I know.
And it's so powerful.
So you felt embarrassed that we were treating this thing so dismissively at the beginning.
Exactly.
And knowing what we know after we've sunk in our full 90 minutes to watch this thing, it does pack an emotional wallop.
Oh,
it takes its long, sweet time to get there, and there's also a reason for all of these arty shots and the way that the camera is set up. It makes you kind of recognize why David Lowery kind of decided to kind of place the cameras where he did, put the framing the way it was,
and have those long moments with the characters, and at the end you're like, I get it. Yeah. It's a hard movie to recommend because it is so slow. Yeah. But if you're looking for like an intelligent film, there is one here for sure. Yeah. Some meaning. I mean, like you must have got that. Were you just thinking about your own life? Oh yeah. When you were watching that. That's what I was.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very personal tale, but it does have this monologue in the middle of it, which is made by this guy that we don't really see other than in this monologue, and he kind of connects the dots on the cycle of the ghosts of all of that we all have in our families and in our memories, and the connective tissue that we have with people that are, you know, long since passed. And that all sounds super highfalutin, and it's but honestly, this is a pretty personal, intimate, artsy, but also powerful and effective piece of movie making, and it's so distinct and different. And I think the idea that this is just a ghost story is a very conscious choice in the filmmakers in the studio, saying, well, look, there's been a million of these kinds of things. How do we wrap this in a different kind of package? How do we make this a unique feeling experience?
And I walked in, I hadn't seen any trailers. We were talking about it the other day. I'm like, oh, I've seen the 1981 Ghost Story movie, which is a an older movie for anybody out there.
Yeah.
And that was like full of jump scares and creepy bits and all that. And there is moments in this movie like that, but it's different.
Yeah.
It's a very fresh take on the ghost story and those types of movies in general.
Yeah.
I was refreshing.
Yeah, there's a you know, a full empathetic kind of streak all the way through this thing, and you care for the characters that even just flit across the screen for moments. There's this point in the progression of the tale where we see this you know, this Mexican family come in, and they kind of take over this environment for a while, and Casey Affleck, all he had to really do was just wear a sheet, and talk about the easiest acting gig ever,
Just
right?
like Rudy Mara, she just sits there and acts sad the whole time and looks out the window, and you feel her emotion, but you know, what is not said says so much.
Yes.
And that's something to be said about this movie.
Yeah, and I think it was the stillness. We don't see this in modern films.
Not at all.
You know, we see the offshoots of the blockbusters and the big budget
Fast
explosions
cuts
and the Michael Bay camera moves and all that stuff. We see so much stimulation that it's really uncomfortable to sit there and just soak it all in and look at every corner of the frame for details and clues. But it actually was very effective, and I'm surprised to say that I really enjoyed this movie.
I know, me too.
And we had one of our friends, Mark, who comes to all of the screenings. We asked, what is this movie about? And he said, well, it's Casey Affleck under a sheet for 2 hours. And he was right, but it kind of worked, you know?
It did. And there's moments I'm like, what am I watching? I was like, this is ridiculous. And then all of a sudden the powerful punches hit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, I was like, oh my God, I got tears, man.
Yeah.
I really felt it. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I thought about my own life. I thought about my wife, my family. It's just everything. It was amazing.
You know, and the sort of meaning that we have while we have time here, right?
Yes,
and
totally.
what people will remember us for, and you know, the ghosts that we all carry around with us.
Very personal.
Yeah, listen to us. We were effectively moved by this damn movie. What are you gonna give?
Hey, what were you moved into giving this movie?
Good one. I'm gonna give it a. It's a tough one. You're right. So I can't like uniformly say this is the best thing I've seen this summer or anything like that. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. But I think if you're in for something unique, you should check it out. What about you?
I'm gonna give it a 7. It's a hard movie to recommend. It's a little slow, but there's a lot of meaning there if you want to like sit it all out.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is probably going to be a big inspiration for all of you wannabe filmmakers out there. If you want to make a film like a ghost story or make your own ghost story, you can learn to do that at the VFS School of Film in 1 year. Visit VFS.edu for more info.